Hello, and welcome to These Are the Days of Our Podcast. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Jen, and today we're wearing green and celebrating St. Patrick's Day, which is celebrated on March 17th.
Woohoo! So, Jen, tell us your story about St. Patrick's Day. I'm assuming it had a lot of beer. Guinness, maybe, even.
Guinness indeed. Rather than regaling you with tales of my misspent youth, I thought I would just share my favorite anecdote about Dublin. A few years back, I went to Dublin with my friend Lee, and we showed up in Dublin, immediately checked into our hostel, and then went to a pub, because that's what you have to do when you arrive in Dublin. Ordered a pint of Guinness, and it was this boisterous, warm atmosphere. It was checking all of the boxes, and it just got better because as the night went on, local people would arrive carrying their own instruments, and they just started playing music together and forming this really organic band. And it was literally all I could have ever wanted from Dublin. Just this like quintessential rowdy, enthusiastic local people wandering in with violins and flutes and singing heartily. It was honestly heavenly and all I could imagine from a Irish experience.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, that's so Irish. And what else could you want? What else could you want?
Exactly. What about you? Tell me about Irish things or St. Patrick's Day in your life.
Well, I've actually been to his gravesite in Downpatrick.
Oh, where is that?
In Northern Ireland, in Downpatrick.
Mm.
I was like, the city of Downpatrick.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went to his gravesite after we went back to Belfast, and it was the evening of our second anniversary, and we spent it in Europe's most bombed hotel.
Oh, so romantic. You really know how to celebrate romantic occasions in your life.
I know, like March in Northern Ireland, so it's just pouring rain solidly in, again, the most bombed hotel in Europe. So it's romance if I've ever heard it.
If anyone is out there like planning a romantic getaway, you just need to get Lisa on the horn, ask her,
Yeah, as a travel concierge, that's what I need to do.
What are the things you want to discuss on your anniversary? Lots of bombing.
I mean, really, it's all the good stuff. So St. Patrick, and I guess his day. I'm just going to tell you some facts about him that I learned.
That sounds great.
So St. Patrick is considered the first bishop of Ireland, Catholic, of course, and the founder of Christianity in Ireland. So he converted the Celts from Celtic polytheism, which if you have some time, look into. It's very, very similar to like Nordic or Native American, the celebration of the seasons and animals containing spirits. They thought heaven were these islands out in the sea, and a young woman sang you out to heaven. Really,
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, the tales, it's all very unknown. It's roughly, they think, from 500 BC to like 500 AD, and there's not a lot of information about it, but what they do know from tales or found items, it sounds really cool. But back to our boy, St. Patrick. He was born somewhere in Britain to a Roman family. He definitely wasn't born with the name Patrick. He gave it to himself later on. Hagiography, which is like a biography, but for saints, shows that his name was probably, pronunciation, corner right here, Mawin Sukat. Mawin Sukat.
Maywin Sukat Day.
Maywin Sukat Day. Not the same ring, but still good. So what we do know is he had two short works. So It starts at 16, and this is how I found this information on the Encyclopedia Britannica. And it says he was torn by Irish raiders from his father's villa, who was a deacon and local official, and sent into slavery in Ireland, which was pretty bleak, I'm sure. 6 years he had to tend animals, but according to himself, this is where he turned to his faith to keep going. He finally escapes after 6 years and actually returns to Britain. So gets on a ship, comes back again somewhere in Britain, where he studies at a monastery and becomes a bishop. And he writes in his autobiography that he has a dream that after his return to Britain and he's in this monastery, that he has to return back to Ireland, and it is like the voices of the Irish are speaking to him. 12 years later, returning to Ireland to bring Christianity to the Celts. It's kind of vague up to this point about what it actually does, because everything written about him is like at least 150 years later, and these are medieval, and so they're still being interpreted or have been interpreted much later on. And so it's kind of vague. It's like, was Christianity already there, or did he really, as a sole single person, like create all these churches and found monasteries and organize Ireland into dioceses? Like, what did he do? So we kind of move into legend and I guess miracles, which are maybe not based in fact. It is actually believed that he introduced the Celtic Cross. So the cross, and it kind of has a circle behind it. So to merge the native sun of one of the main parts of Celtic polytheism, as the sun was one of the gods, one of the main celestial gods, with the Christian cross. So that's how we get the Celtic Cross, which is pretty cool. These are some of the really cool legends that he did while he was converting everyone, and apparently being very pious, very humble. Really took this upon himself to convert all of Ireland. First legend, probably the most famous one, is that he drove the snakes out of Ireland.
Snakes
in Ireland. Snakes. Chasing them into the sea to their destruction. A little asterisk to that. There was probably never snakes in Ireland after the glaciers melted hundreds of thousands of years ago.
I just feel like this means that we can declare ourselves patron saints of driving things out of places that they never were. Because if, we could be the patron saint.
There is no bears in the UK.
Yes.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Brits.
Saint Lisa has taken care of the British bear problem. So thankful. Okay, so snakes on a plane, snakes out of Ireland, snakes. Probably wasn't St. Patrick.
Legend number 2. His walking stick on his journey back to Ireland to his parents' home is said to have grown into a living tree, an actual tree from his walking stick, which is now somewhere in Cumbria in England. So you could visit it if you want. A couple other ones which sound questionable. Like, he wrote himself that he raised people from the dead. And the total number, this is according to a 12th century text, is at 33. And some of them had been deceased for many years. But he raised them from the dead.
Oh, so many questions. I'm very uncomfortable with this, but
yeah.
What is left to raise after many years of being dead?
We don't discuss it. We just write about it like we did.
Okay.
The next one is he prayed very hard for a provision of food for hungry sailors traveling by land through a desolate area, and a herd of pigs miraculously appeared.
Wow.
All because of him.
Delicious bacon, then.
He has a lot of possible legends and miracles associated with him. But the reason we have St. Patrick's Day is because he apparently died on March 17th at the age of Guess.
37.
120. So we're still making
so
things
lots
up at
of
this
facts.
point.
There are so many true things about his life.
So we really and everything we know is the earliest references of him and his writings are from hundreds of years later. So everything is just, we're so unsure and we don't know anything about his life, and everything's like, oh, it could possibly be this. There's this apparently a tale of two Patricks who could have been these Patricks in Ireland converting people to Christianity, but he is the patron saint of Ireland who brought Christianity there, and he is celebrated on March 17th every year.
On his 120th birthday.
Yes.
I just wanted to interject and say, basically, what we know for sure is that there was probably someone that gave himself the name Patrick and lived for a time in Ireland and probably read a lot of biblical things to people. And everything else is a question.
Yes.
Okay, just to sum up.
How to recognize him in paintings, which I think is a good little art fact, because as we know...
Art history, Lisa,
high Renaissance, medieval paintings, almost primarily religious based. So a couple tips for recognizing some saints in paintings. So he is usually wearing green, he has a beard, and he has a snake at his feet because he drove them out of Ireland, or not. But he has a snake at the feet. And there's a couple other saints, like if you saw St. George, he is in England's flag's colors, so white and red, and he's usually slaying a dragon. St. Sebastian would have arrows shot into, he'd have arrows in his chest. There's a good way to recognize saints. So if you ever see a green man with a beard and he has a snake at his foot, St. Patrick. Now you know.
Or you've drank too much absinthe and you probably should go to bed.
Yeah, whiskey or Guinness. They'll get you. They'll get you.
Good facts. Good facts or complete non-facts, because we apparently know almost nothing about this very famous saint. There are a number of symbols that have come to represent St. Patrick's Day. So if you're looking around at a St. Paddy's Day parade, you're probably going to see the shamrock, which is a little plant with the cute little 3 leaves. I wanted to clarify for some people shamrocks versus clovers, but this comes to be associated with St. Patrick because according to these very solid facts we have about him, he used the shamrock when he was trying to explain the Holy Trinity, saying that Father, Son, Holy Spirit were all 3 parts of the same plant. So he used the symbol of the shamrock to really as a metaphor for the Trinity. That is why allegedly the shamrock has become associated with St. Patrick. But then there also is this association with the Irish symbol of good luck, which is a 4-leaf clover, which was actually associated with ancient Celts as a charm against evil spirits. So there's a lot of conflation and confusion about this Celtic symbol of good luck and the 3-leaf clover, which is associated with this story about St. Patrick. The word for shamrock comes from an Irish word, searog, which just means little plant, which I think is quite cute. Apparently, there is no specific shamrock plant. Most scientists agree that it is referring to the white clover or possibly the suckling clover. And both of these clovers are 3-leaved species of clover. So clover is a much broader common name of a variety of species. So there are over 300 different types of clovers found throughout the world. And the main feature of a clover is that they have compound leaves. Often these are leaves of 3, but there are some species that are leaves of 4. All shamrocks are clovers, but not all clovers are shamrocks. Shamrocks always have 3 leaves, and clovers often have 3 leaves, but can have many other numbers of leaves.
Good facts.
So those are my main shamrock facts.
Facts about facts. It kind of brings up other Irish folklore, like leprechauns, which is funny that you say shamrock is just little plant, because leprechauns are just little bodies.
Oh, just the little plants and the little bodies.
And leprechauns are actually a type of fairy, and usually you would see them as like small bearded men with a green hat and a coat. And they're known for their money and their cobbling business. So they must make some good money crafting shoes. And they're said to always have a hammer and a shoe in hand, and according to legend you can hear them coming because there's a telltale tapping sound they make. And I was like, oh, that's kind of terrifying if you think deep about it. Also, there's no female leprechauns because they're the unwanted children of the fairy community, and that's all males apparently.
So females become fairy, like classic woodland sprite fairies, and then the unwanted children get sent to repair shoes. Is that
Maybe
what a leprechaun is?
I mean, they always have gold at the end of the rainbow, so are they really that unwanted? But they're very, like all fairies, they're very mischievous and they're tricksters, and they will try to steal your gold. And if you catch one, you have to make sure you can never take your eyes off him or he'll disappear. And some tales say that they can also live underwater, which is, so are they also mermaids? Are they everything?
This is blowing my mind. The idea that there are mermaid leprechauns is too much. That's like too many things altogether.
And apparently they have a troublesome cousin called Cluricon. Oh, that's a different one. And they actually wear red, and they have like a lot of characteristics that are similar with leprechauns, as in they are drunk and surly, and then they ride animals at night to cause problems with your herd, and they clear out entire wine cellars. So they're like the night form of leprechauns.
And this whole idea of being surly and like not trustworthy drunks relates to some of the problematic stereotypes that are associated with the Irish immigration and diaspora. So going from like a super cute, fun idea of tiny little men repairing your shoes at night with pots of gold to talking about why St. Paddy's Day came to be celebrated worldwide. So how did the culture from this literally tiny rock in the middle of the Atlantic sweep the world? Why do we see St. Patrick's Day celebrated so widely? And really this goes back to a large wave of Irish immigration that was in the 19th and 20th centuries. So the Great Potato Famine of 1845 was this potato blight that rendered the staple of Irish diets completely inedible. Because the political system at the time was controlled in London with British lawmakers, there was very little aid provided to the Irish people who were starving because they didn't want it to, quote, interfere with the natural course of free markets, which is horrible.
Yeah, there's actually a very long, intense history of British rule in Ireland. That's an entire episode separately.
Yes, absolutely. So we're just going to move on from that very problematic moment and just say that by 1852, the population of Ireland was cut in half. About 1 million people had died and 2 million were refugees in one of the single largest migration events of the 19th century. The Irish refugees found themselves largely going to North America and also some to Australia. The Irish refugees were not welcomed with open arms in North America. There was a lot of anti-Catholic and anti-Irish violence that surged in North America because the Irish were being vilified by the Protestant majority. So discrimination was blatant. There were advertisements saying no Irish need apply. There were a lot of really damaging discrimination depicting Irish as violent, drunken people.
Even in London, they used to have signs that said no blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
A very problematic period of time. The Irish were facing a lot of discrimination for their religious beliefs and these really horrible stereotypes that were being perpetuated about them. And interestingly, St. Patrick's Day parades actually started in North America as a show of strength and solidarity for Irish migrants to come together and really fight against these stereotypes and prejudices. So it's really interesting to know that this iconic celebration of Irish culture actually started in North America.
Yeah, the first parade was in New York City, and it was held in 1762. So America wasn't even a country yet, and they were already celebrating St. Patrick's Day, which is pretty cool.
Definitely. Initially started as a very religious holiday, talking about St. Patrick, became quickly this commercial holiday. When St. Patrick's Day was revered as a religious holiday about the patron saint, pubs were closed, and it was like a religious celebration. You would go to church or mass and recognize it in that way. In 1970, though, it was reclassified as a national holiday as a way to boost tourism. And then drinking became a much more popular activity for the day than going to church. So now March 17th sees millions of people donning their best green clothes, sometimes red beards, singing Irish songs, drinking Irish beer and whiskey, and making the Irish blessing very true that there are only two kinds of people in the world, the Irish and those who wish they were.
Good one.
Yeah. While there is some criticisms that the drunk and disorderly conduct make of St. Patrick's Day revelers may be continuing to perpetuate damaging stereotypes of Irish people, I think broadly most people have come to recognize this as an opportunity to let your hair down, to drink whiskey, and to drink beer, which are quite quintessentially Irish drinks. So shall I go into some facts about whiskey? Because whiskey is my favorite.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Irish whiskey, interestingly enough, is one of the earliest distilled drinks in Europe. It arose in the 12th century. They believe that Irish monks brought back perfume distilling practices from Southern Europe around 1000 AD. The Irish then modified these distilling techniques to create a drinkable spirit, termed whiskey, which comes from a Gaelic word, which I will definitely pronounce correctly. It was
I believe in you.
Usi Bretha, which is water of life in Gaelic. But apparently when it's pronounced somewhat correctly and anglicized, Uisce, Uisce, pronounce it better, sounds enough like whiskey. That's where they think that the word came from. But yes, water of life. This is going to cause tension with our Scottish listeners, but apparently the oldest written record of whiskey is from Ireland, not Scotland. That there is a record of whiskey.
Fighting words.
I know. They are the OG whiskey. Sorry, Scotland.
Apparently the difference between Irish whiskey and Scottish whiskey is that Irish whiskey is triple distilled. Is that true?
Yes, it is. So it's a lot smoother. Well, but I just wanted to give you the dates just in case you're questioning my facts.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm
the
ready.
Oldest written record of whiskey in Ireland is 1405. The first mention in Scotland is 1494. So they had a solid 89 years of written history of whiskey before it appeared in the Scottish text. Although, devil's advocate, maybe the Scottish were drinking whiskey and just not writing about it.
Yeah, maybe that's not what they do when they're drinking whiskey. Maybe
Exactly.
they're, doing some Highland games in their kilts. They're too busy. They're too busy.
Exactly. Irish whiskey is thought to have a smoother finish because it's triple distilled, and then Scotch whiskey tends to have a smoky or earthy undertone because peat is added in the process. Although, from a personal experience, at the Jameson's factory in Dublin, I did a side-by-side blind taste test of whiskeys, which I love. I love the science of this. I just find this delightful. So they had the leading brands of Scottish, American, and Irish whiskey. So that would be Johnny Walker from Scotland, Jack Daniel's American, and Jameson's Irish whiskey.
Oh, they didn't have Bushmills?
Recognizing that I did this taste test at a Jameson's factory probably indicates that they're going to select Jameson's as the Irish whiskey of choice. But it confirmed that I am through and through a Irish whiskey aficionado. That was my favorite, hands down, no question. So just send me some Irish whiskey and I'll be happy.
Or an Irish lad. Someone send them to Jen.
Or that would also be fine. I will say that despite all of my efforts going to a whiskey distillery, then going on a beer tour at the Guinness factory, I did not secure myself any Irish men, but
the shame.
And oh my goodness, there were major sports things happening that weekend that we were there, and it was literally just all of the men partying about sports things.
What sport?
I have no idea. I think it might have been English versus Ireland rugby, which seems like something that the Irish would really show up for, and it was in Dublin. So Lee and I were wandering around wondering why the entire city was just somewhat drunk young men wandering around, and then we learned it was sports things.
All of the sports.
We're going to swiftly move on to talk a little bit about beer. And I don't really have that many facts because
we just like drinking it. We don't have a lot of facts. We just
Although,
drink it.
I do want to ask you this. What color is Guinness?
Brown?
According to the Guinness factory.
And the Book of Records?
And the Book of Records. Yes. And the internet. It's actually a dark red color.
No,
it's like
that's...
Yes, look this up. This was mind-blowing. I learned this at the Guinness factory. But yeah, it's a dark ruby red color.
Weird.
Look, you're Googling this and it confirmed?
I mean, it looks black.
It looks black when you pour it.
Or,
yeah.
The brown beer color.
Yeah, dark brown beer. But yeah, it's apparently this has this hint of red that is the pride of Guinness brewers.
Like the weird leprechaun cousins. And they're drunk and surly off of Guinness.
So a lot of others are drunk and surly off of Guinness on St. Patrick's Day. It's estimated that 13 million pints of Guinness were consumed on St. Patrick's Day. And this is more than double the average. There apparently somewhere around 5 to 5.5 million pints of Guinness are consumed in an average day. 13 million pints. That's so much.
That is so much, especially because Guinness is so heavy, and when you drink it, it's like a whole meal in itself. You're like, so many people were having so many meals, and not the traditional cabbage and bacon of the Irish St. Patrick's Day meals, but actual Guinness.
That is a great segue into some of the other traditional foods that you can eat to celebrate. So if that's not exactly your taste, if cabbage isn't your
not into it,
preferred brew. You can try the Irish soda bread, which actually sounds really good.
Oh, soda bread's really good.
Another popular Irish dish is a beef and Guinness pie. Then we can't talk about Irish food without talking about the Irish potato soup. And you could probably finish your meal with an Irish coffee. So lots of delicious options. If
Irish coffee's the winner for me.
Yeah, me as well. Me as well. Finally, I can't talk about St. Patrick's Day without mentioning music. A vital part of any St. Paddy's Day celebration is music. There is no band more synonymous with Irish music than the Pogues. Mm-hmm. They were so poetic, political, really working class liberal. And I would argue the sound to me of St. Patrick's Day is that unmistakable harmonica opening to Dirty Old Town. And Spotify agrees with me because I looked up their most popular St. Patrick's Day playlist, and that is the very first song, so I am not entirely wrong. Another band that you probably think of when you think of the Irish and St. Patrick's Day is the Dubliners. They started in O'Donoghue's pub, which is a very famous pub in Dublin, and they've been possibly the most influential traditional Irish band for 3 decades. If you want to combine those two musical influences, you can listen to the Irish Rover, which is by the Pogues, with the Dubliners. So that is also a frequent feature on a St. Paddy's Day playlist. The song that I think you can guarantee a sing-along at a pub is probably Galway Girl. This I know well because I love P.S. I Love You. But it's actually just generally a very popular song in Ireland. Interestingly, though, it was written by an American songwriter, Steve Earle, who was living in Ireland and working with traditional Irish musicians. Some other fun facts about St. Patrick's Day is it's the traditional day for planting peas. So you should plant your peas today. And also, you should plant your cabbage seeds. And according to the Farmer's Almanac, which is really where you should go for all of your main life advice, you need to plant your cabbage seeds while wearing your night clothes in order to make them grow well.
What? I mean, that bodes well in the pandemic, because who's changing out of their PJs into the day?
Exactly. I just think that is really top advice for how to get good cabbages this year is just plant them on St. Paddy's Day in your night clothes.
Good one. So some famous people born on March 17th. We have Otto Gross. So you might not have heard of him, but he was like a very early disciple of Sigmund Freud and then became an anarchist. And he is basically the founding father of like 20th century counterculture. Pretty cool.
Wow.
Anti-psychiatry, all into sexual liberation, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty intense. And then Nat King Cole was born on March 17th. Fabulous jazz pianist.
Mm-hmm.
Super good.
And you don't want me to sing Nat King Cole to you right now? That's what you're saying? You really...
Yeah, I'm saying it's okay that you don't. I'm saying we can move on.
I do want to add a very important birthday that we missed because we did not do an episode on March 15th. And it is my obligation as an epidemiologist to bring up that...
Jon Snow!
Yes! It was Jon Snow's birthday.
Snow!
Yeah. So we missed that. I think he's 209 this year. So big day. He's the father of epidemiology, did some great things about cholera.
Yeah, found some good sewage water.
Sewage in the wells. Fun times for everyone.
If you're allowed out anytime soon, you can go to his pub.
I did, in one of my nerdier moments, lead a parade of epidemiologists from UCL through the streets of London, destination Jon Snow's pub, and he's the patron saint of epidemiology, driving cholera out of the wells of London.
It does also really help that there's a pub literally in front of that well.
I don't think that's an accident.
It was like, don't drink this water, go to the pub.
Actually, oh my goodness, this is very peripheral epidemiology facts, but there was a brewery nearby and nobody there was getting sick. And it was really weird because this whole neighborhood, everyone was getting cholera and dying. And then everyone that worked at the brewery wasn't. Jon Snow realized they had a well within the brewery in order to make the beer, and that wasn't contaminated by cholera. It didn't have a lot of poo in it, which is great for a well.
That's what you want in a good well.
A good well has very little poo in it. Fun facts.
I'll take actually zero.
As little as possible. March 15th is also the Ides of March, which I don't even know what that is. I just know you're supposed to be aware of it.
Yeah, so actually it is when Romans had to settle their debts by. That was the due date.
It was like their tax deadline in Roman times.
Like Roman times, tax deadline.
Well, I am always afraid of the tax deadline, so I will continue to be aware of the Ides of March then. St. Patrick's Day is really the main holiday on the 17th, so not much else to mention going on there. But if you want some things to celebrate on the 18th, it's Awkward Moments Day, which is most of my life.
It's how you live your life.
It's how I live my life.
Go on.
It is Sloppy Joe Day.
I like Sloppy Joes.
Oh, yeah, I'm not adverse to this. It is Forgive Your Mom and Dad Day.
That will never happen.
And it is Biodiesel Day.
Oh,
so
I actually saw that these American scientists just invented biojet fuel for planes. Yeah, a lot less carbon emissions. Cool stuff. So great day to correspond with.
That's March 17th and all things true and untrue about St. Patrick.
Yeah, all the facts, figures, and legends.
Well, I will talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye. These are the days, my friends, the hourglass and descends. Let's sing and dance and make a bunch of noise. So let the fun ensue and learn a thing or two. These are the days, oh yes, these are the days.